We're doing live, should I say. It's a daily-ish broadcast where I just talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about while we are waiting on folks to join. CoopedUp.com is my website. You can check that out at any time. I'm Cooped Up is my handle in all the social places. Would love a follow. And wherever you watch or listen to this, it is on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, as well as rebroadcast in audio format on all of the major podcasting platforms. Would love a follow, click the bell, whatever they call it, subscribe so that you do not miss a second. Hey, Mama, how are you doing? It has been a minute since I have been here. So my last broadcast was a week ago, last Monday. And then I left Wednesday, and I'm doing this now Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm not doing it 5 days a week anymore. We've got too much going on. I've got an engagement on Tuesdays and Thursdays, at least for the next few weeks. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but I had to leave last week on Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. It was an early flight. I had to get in the Alto to take me to the airport at, I think 5:20 is when they picked me up. It was crazy because I went up to Iowa with Eric Johnson, who is a watcher here and one of my great friends, to help him settle up. His dad passed away 2 months ago, I guess it is at this point, maybe longer ago. May? I think that's May. May was not 2 months ago. It's like 4 months ago, whatever. My math is all screwed up. But anyway, so I went up with him because he was settling some of his stuff for his dad's estate, including a pickup truck that he inherited and wanted to bring home. So we were tooling around Western Iowa, up and down Western Iowa. I think everything in Western Iowa is 40 miles from each other, or 40 minutes. Just, it's real close by. It's just 40 minutes down the road. Oh, it's close by. It's just 40 minutes down the road. Yes. Eric is saying, hello, Mr. Dangerously Handsome. Yes, I will tell you, the old ladies of Western Iowa did not know what to think about Mr. Cooper Koch. Or they did. One of them told Eric later that I'm dangerously handsome. And then the other one, every time, so that was the first one was his great aunt, Addie, who is 90 in like a couple of weeks. And then we visited with his 80-year-old, I guess, math teacher from high school, whose name is already failing me now. But anyway, she loved my name so much that literally every time my name came out of either my mouth or Eric's mouth, she'd go, oh my God, I love that name. Like orgasmed at the table. Sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to put that visual in your brain about your math teacher. But yes, it was funny. It was actually, this episode is called Hot in Holstein because Holstein, Iowa is where Eric is from. And it was funny because in addition to the old ladies, the people staring at me, and Eric, I'm assuming as well, I noticed it for myself, was shocking. Like it started, we get off the airport in Omaha, Nebraska, which is not a huge airport, but we get off the airplane and I swear, like people are just like turning their heads staring at the two of us walking through. Granted, we're both very tall people. I am 6'4". Eric is only slightly shorter than I am. What are you, like 6'2", Eric? Something like that. Arriving. I told Claire about it, and she goes, it was your new suitcase, Daddy. Because I was like, I wasn't flashy. I didn't have painted nails. I had 5 a.m. hair, all that kind of stuff. But yeah. And then we were at a restaurant there's a couple of places, but we were in Holstein at this place called Backdraft. And it's a firefighter themed pizza place. It's famous. Literally everyone who wasn't in Holstein and you mentioned anything about Holstein, they all said Backdraft. It's like the thing that they know about this town. And by the way, most of these towns had a population of 1 digit before the comma. Some of them didn't even have a comma. So this is the small town stuff that we were going through. It was a good time. It's really, really pretty there. But we're at Backdraft, what I was saying, and I got to go to the bathroom, and I swear people either were looking at me or they just look at everybody. Like, I don't know if it's different in the country than it is in the city about people staring at other people or paying attention to them. I don't know, but it was weird. I don't mind people looking at me because I know this is a lot, but Anyway, the other thing that was hot, it was so fucking hot there, y'all. Get off the plane in Omaha. Literally, the first thing I said to Eric was, "Oh my God, Eric, I thought it was supposed to be cooler here." Like I sounded like my daughter. "Oh my God, Daddy. Oh my God, Eric, I thought it was supposed to be cooler here." And it was by temperature. I think the temperature was only in like the high 80s, lower 90s when we got there. But so was the humidity. It was just sticky and ugh. And then once we fly into there, and then it's like an hour and a half drive. I think an hour drive out to Denison. The towns we were in are Denison, UTE. Todd was looking at where I was on the Find Friends thing, and he was like, he later told me, he's like, "You were in a nondescript building in a town called Ute, Iowa." And Ute is one of those where I don't think the population had a comma in it. I think that was just a couple hundred people town. But anyway, but you could tell that these places have weather extremes, and they're not used to the heat quite as much, but they're used to the cold because all the houses had like windbreaks, like the trees planted on the north and the west sides of their properties. And Eric gave me a tour of every possible thing. It was hilarious. So the first day we get there, and we landed at, what did we land at? Like 9 o'clock? I think even earlier than that. But we land there, and then we get the truck. We drive out to Ute, and along the way we are stopping at cemeteries. So I visited his maternal grandparents' grave, his paternal grandparents' grave, his father's grave, and his mother's grave. And these are all gorgeous, like German-style cemeteries. I think two of them were like connected to a small little country church. They were all beautiful. They had headstones. So I love old cemeteries. One of the things that I did when we were in Landrum, North Carolina, with the kids, I think Landrum is in South Carolina. My in-laws live on the border between North and South Carolina, so I get confused about what state I'm in. But we went in, and I was kind of bored one day, and so I was like, "Let's go check things out." And we went to the old cemetery. I'm just fascinated by them and the headstones. And Monica says, "I like walking through cemeteries." I do too. Must run in the family, Monica. And I love seeing like the birth years and like seeing if we can find the oldest one. The kids are fascinated with seeing the baby ones and seeing how they relate to them, like if they show a name or not. One of the things that I found fascinating in Iowa, and I've never seen this anywhere else, but I'm sure it exists some in other places too, was that so a husband and a wife were buried together, but if the wife gets remarried, like after the husband dies or there was a divorce or something like that, they are still, and I may be getting this confused, so Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, they're still buried together, but then there's an additional headstone put on there with the new married name or something like that. And they're not always buried together. Like Eric's parents are divorced. They're not buried together. But Eric's mother is buried with his stepfather, Gary, I think was his name. And they're buried together. But then there's like a supplemental headstone that goes with like it explaining that the connection and the relationship thing. I just found that fascinating. I thought that was so interesting. And the other thing that I found interesting about it was it is I have never seen so many crops in my life. Every field was like to the road was like corn on one side and soybeans on the other. And if it wasn't corn on one side and soybeans on the other, it was soybeans on one side and corn on the other, or vice versa. Those are the only two crops that they grow up there. And they grow them like, I did not even see fences in most properties because fences would take up places for them to grow crops. And there was hardly any livestock. I just did not see hardly anything there. And if I did see livestock, it was just they were kind of like on the property where the farmhouse was. There wasn't like fields and stuff of that. But it's corn and soybeans up there. It was really pretty though because it's not flat. Like I was actually expecting Iowa, because I don't think I've seen that many corn fields in my life. I mean, I've seen corn planted in places, but not like to that extent. And I did not expect it to be so rolling and so hilly. And in some places, it kind of was like a mountain even. Was it the Low S Hills, I think was what the name was. Anyway, but it was hot. And actually, I saw on the day that we were leaving that Kansas City, Kansas, which was not too far from us, like a couple of hours to the south, was one of the hottest places in the United States on Friday. And they were having heat advisories all over the place because it was hot. It was. We also sampled all of the cuisine that Western Iowa has to offer. And almost none of it involves vegetables, unless you count potatoes as vegetables. Oh, Monica, back to the cemetery thing. Reason I'm being cremated, making my kids lug me around. I say the same thing. I say take what you want and burn the rest. Donate and cremate, and then make me be a burden for the rest of my kids' lives on them as well. And Eric is saying you were basically right. In addition, the additional stone are for people who are widowed, and the second spouse puts a marker next to the original stone. That's what it was. It was fascinating to me. I thought it was so interesting. I've never seen anything like that. Not that I go to a lot of cemeteries, but still. Back to the food thing. One of the places that we ate, Eric took me to, there's a lot of like Iowan regional chains, and they may be Iowa, Nebraska also, because we were really close to Nebraska most of the time. Hang on, I just remembered something that I wanted to talk about. But one of the ones that is like legendary is this place called Pizza Ranch. And basically it is like a miniature Mr. Gatti's, like a Texas, if you're thinking about a Texas chain. It is a pizza buffet, but this one also has fried chicken and all the fixings for fried mashed potatoes, all that kind of stuff. And then a salad bar, big old school salad bar, and where you put all of the stuff. And I will say the pizza at Pizza Ranch, it was all right. There's no such thing as bad pizza, so it's all right. But the fried chicken at Pizza Ranch was legendary. I will go on record as saying it is probably top 5 for certain, maybe top 3 even, fried chicken I've ever had in my entire life. It was so good. I don't know what it was. It wasn't overly greasy, but it had sat out a little bit, so it kind of got some of its moisture back. I don't like super crispy fried chicken, but I don't like it soggy either. The batter was like perfect. It was between a just flour batter and a tempura. It wasn't thick like a tempura, but it was somewhere in between. It was succulent. It was so good. Oh my goodness. So Pizza Ranch is a win for the fried chicken alone. And then salad bar too. I love a good old country salad bar where you put a little bit of iceberg lettuce on your plate, and then you put all the other stuff on top of it, put some salad dressing on it, and you have more cheeses and nuts and veggies, and that was the most veggie forward thing I had there. Bacon bits, all that kind of stuff. And they have a specific type of salad dressing. I've never heard of this either. A specific type of salad dressing that is specific to, I don't know if it's Iowa or Western Iowa, but definitely that region. And Nebraska. I think I looked it up. I think it's also Nebraska, Eastern Nebraska too. And it is called Dorothy Lynch dressing. And I looked it up. I don't remember much about it. I would say the closest comparison to it was French dressing, but I was reading about it. French dressing is oil-based, whereas Dorothy Lynch dressing is tomato-based, but it has a similar flavor profile to French dressing, but then add a bunch of onion powder to it. It had like an oniony kind of taste. It's from Eastern Nebraska, but Western Iowa is practically Eastern Nebraska, and Eastern Nebraska is practically Western Iowa. That's what I learned on this trip. So, what else? Eric is saying he may have to have Pizza Ranch chicken on his 50th birthday. Yes, it was so good. So good. And I bet it travels beautifully. My other favorite fried chicken, and this is like it's maybe a very specific memory, It's not from a place necessarily. It is when I was a kid and we would go to the beach, because I grew up most of my life an hour and a half away from the beach at most. So we would do day trips to either to South Padre Island or Port Aransas. Like those were the two main Texas beaches we went to. We would cook fried chicken the night before and then line a big piece of Tupperware with paper towels, put the fried chicken in the Tupperware, close it, put it in the fridge, and then take it to the beach, not heat it up, but just let the natural like temperature heat it back up. It's still moist. It's a little on the soggy side, but that's not too bad because you just make it extra crispy when you first make it. And then the salt air with it. Like this could be just one of those things where it's not actually all that great. It's just the memory of eating fried chicken at the beach and the slightly salty and the beach air and all that kind of. It was a special occasion to go to the beach. But we did it a lot because it's cheap to go to the beach. It's free. Anyway, Pizza Ranch fried chicken though. If you were in, and this was a nondescript place. Like I felt like the one that we were in looked like it was an old Pizza Hut or something. And I don't think it was, but an old Pizza Hut or something. What else? About lottery tickets while we were there. On the first night, I was telling Claire about, I was on FaceTime with the kids, telling them about all of our adventures of the day, all that kind of stuff. And she goes, Daddy, you need to buy a lottery ticket. That's the kind of place where people win the lottery. I did. And you know what? I know I didn't win the big one because no one won the big one. I have not actually checked the numbers. Eric and I each bought $18 worth because they were $3 each. And we made the promise that we would split half and half if either of us won it. And we bought it in Holstein, Iowa, his hometown. So I need to actually look at the numbers. I've got to find the ticket. I think it's in my little bag to see how we fared. Because you can still win like $1 million if you get like 5 of the numbers or something like that. Chicken at the beach is the best. Monica is saying yes. I agree. And we probably have the same memory on that too. And then on the second day, I was there a full day. So landed in the morning, full day, cemeteries, Pizza Ranch, visiting Great Aunt Addie, dinner. I can't remember what that was called. Chicken fried steak. Those what I had. And then the next day we woke up and we were going out to Buena Vista University where Eric graduated. First thing Eric told me that morning, though, or maybe it was the night before, he said, I promise tomorrow we will only see living people. Because we'd been to so many cemeteries. Now, if the cemeteries were boring, that would have been different, but they were actually very fascinating. And so many of them were like big family plots, like all of these names, and all of the names are German or Dutch in that area. And all the towns are like German names. Schleswig, they say things differently there, but like this, when I lived in Germany, the state I lived in was Schleswig-Holstein, and they have Schleswig, they call it Schleswig or something, Schleswig, and Holstein, but it's Holstein in German. So very, very German area. And but we went up to Buena Vista University where Eric graduated. It was about an hour and a half away, but we stopped a couple of times along the way at different things to, like, that's where the boys who babysat me lived, or that's where this family, listen to this drama about it. Pointed out, I mean, just little stories about everything. It was great. It was a nice glimpse into the background that created Mr. Eric Johnson. But Buena Vista University, what an adorable school. So it is in Storm Lake, Iowa. It's a small liberal arts school, has, I think they said it's like, how many students was it? Is it like 2,000? Is that how many students were there, Eric? I don't remember now. The number, it was smaller than SMU, and SMU has about 5,000 undergraduates, and it was significantly smaller than SMU. So maybe like 1,000. We visited, the president greeted Eric, and we toured. We had lunch with him and toured the campus. Really, really beautifully done. It was like a little miniature SMU. All the buildings matched like SMU. They had the same, that collegiate Georgian kind of style. But most of the campus was actually underground because it's so fucking cold in northwestern Iowa at this point. I think were we closer to the Minnesota border than your hometown? Not Holstein, but Ute, where your dad and your sister lived. are we closer to Minnesota than there at that point? I feel like we were. And he's saying it's about 1,400 students. And then on Friday, we drove back. So we had to take care of a little bit of business at the bank in the morning. And then we hit the road, and we were in Eric's truck, new to him truck. And that was his dad's. It only had a few hundred miles on it when his dad passed. And drove. And Eric drove for about the first 3 hours. And we did not turn the radio on the whole time. We just chit-chatted, gossiped, talked smack about people. Yeah, if your ears were burning, it was probably for a reason. And then we stopped for lunch in, I think it was in Topeka, Kansas, I believe is where we stopped for lunch. We stopped at a Perkins, which is a regional. I thought it looked like a clean Denny's, like a cleaner Denny's. It was like a breakfast spot. But they had breakfast all day long, but other stuff. I had a grilled chicken salad, but then all the things negated the healthy part of it. Just a lot of lettuce with sauces and stuff, but it was wonderful. And then I drove from there, and then I drove through until we got to I don't remember. Did I drive all the way to Norman, Oklahoma? I did. I drove all the way to Norman, Oklahoma. So from Topeka, Kansas, we went over to Wichita, just kind of bypassed it. This long ass turnpike, by the way, which only cost $12, remarkably. And then dropped straight down, went through Oklahoma City, and then in Norman, Oklahoma, which is south of where it's the University of Oklahoma. I think that's what it is there. We stopped and we ate at a Chili's. I had not been to a Chili's in forever. We had some baby back ribs. They were really good. And then Eric drove the last little bit, 2.5 hours back to Dallas. And it was great. We had to stop for gas a couple of times, got some snacks. Listen, on that last part. So from Topeka, Kansas and so all told in the car, the actual active driving is about like 10.5 hours. And so the first 3 hours we just chit chatted, and the rest of it we listened to the I've Had It podcast, which is based out of Oklahoma City. It's these two women, Jennifer and Pumps. Pumps is her nickname. I can't remember her real name. Just great podcast. So y'all should listen to it if you are into podcasts. It's funny. It's irreverent. It's not overly negative, but they do kind of shit talk and stuff. They drop F-bombs, they drop C-bombs, all kinds of stuff. It's a funny thing. Like I said, irreverent, not always the classiest, but who doesn't love that? And then we got home at like 11 p.m. or got to my house at like 11 p.m. It was so funny. When I got out of the car, hugged Eric, walked into the house, and both Todd and the kids go, "Are y'all okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" All of them were like, "That was just a weird exchange. Like, it was very like short and to the point, and then you went in. Like, you just hugged and said bye and went in." And I was like, "Oh, no. We had a great time." I would say the car ride flew by. When it comes to like a 10.5 hour drive plus 2 meal stops, like that is like top-notch travel that we just did, because there was no like bored. I wasn't bored at all. It went by in a flash. We saw things. He told me more about the history of the places that we went, all that kind of stuff. But I was like, it was just a long day. And because we left the hotel in Denison which Denison is the metropolis of that whole area, maybe 12,000 people, if even that. Closest hospital, closest Walmart, all that. But we then drove back to Ute, which was like a 20-minute, 30-minute drive to do some other stuff, finish some stuff up, and all of that. And so it was just a really long day. Got home at 11. And I think both of us were ready to come inside. We were both sober, stone cold sober, which that didn't happen very often either. So I know I remedied that as soon as I walked into the house. I don't know about Eric, but I'm sure. Eric is saying the best road trip of my life. I was just ready to get home to Mark and D. I agree. I just wanted to be in my house. I was actually sore the next day from sitting for so long. I woke up Saturday morning and my legs were sore. Eric and I have different driving styles. I will say that. And I think I scared him a couple of times. I'm a very fast driver and I take turns maybe on two wheels occasionally. There were a couple of times where he's like, ah! Like that. But I don't think it was anything too terrifying. But I do push the limits. I set the cruise control at least 9 miles above. And then sometimes I even push that. And if you have Waze going, it tells you when there's police in the area. So, yes. And Eric's husband tells him that he drives like an old lady. Eric does not drive like an old lady. He is just much more cautious than Mark and I are, I think. And Mark and I really don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to that, considering our driving records. Although I have not had a car accident, knock on wood, in years and years and years and years. Back in my youth, I had them all the time. So it was not too terrifying, Eric is saying about that. And then what else? And then today I spent most of the day, I had been spackling. I had a wardrobe change because I was all sweaty. I was spackling today. We have a house that we own that was my old office that we're trying to get on the market. And finally I'm like, you know what, bitch, just get it done. And I'm spackling like, there's a couple of cracks in the sheetrock in a couple of places and like nail holes and all that stuff. So doing that, spackling, I put the tape down, spackled it. It's this pretty pink kind that then turns white when you know it's dry, and then you can sand it and then paint it. I'll paint it tomorrow. Very, very butch day, that sort of thing. And then what else? Paul Reubens, Wee Herman died today. So I wanted to take a moment to recognize him. So if you are a child of a certain age, specifically if you are a Generation X child raised in the 1980s, Wee Herman was a huge, huge, huge part of your upbringing, most likely. I remember Monica and I waking up in the morning to watch the Pee-wee's Playhouse. I could still sing the theme song to this day. Get out of bed, there'll be no more napping. Wake up. I could go on and on. But it's so funny because I want, and I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the movie. Big Top Pee-wee, I only have a passing memory of that. That was the sequel. But both did very well in the movie theaters. The first one is considered like a hit. It made like $40 million in its day, which was a lot for a movie. And especially since Pee-wee started off as kind of an adult-themed one-person stage show kind of thing. And then he had the TV show, Pee-wee's Playhouse, and loved it. And I saw an episode of Pee-wee's Playhouse recently. I don't know why. It was on something. I think it was like a retrospective of Paul Reubens because he had that thing where he got busted for masturbating in an adult movie theater. It was not like he was not there to see Barbie. He was not there to see Mission Impossible. He was in an adult movie theater, porn, in Sarasota, Florida, and was caught jacking off, which means it was like a sting. It means the police were already there watching for it, right? And disgraced him. He stopped doing Pee-wee Herman completely as a character at that point. Only to revisit it in the last 10 years or so. And anyway, and he's since had a claim again lately and all that stuff. So I think that's why I saw it. But Pee-wee's Playhouse, that was kind of dirty. Like if you watch it now as an adult, some of the jokes were funny jokes as kids. It's kind of like Pixar movies where they'll have a double meaning on things where the kids don't get it, but the adults are like, hey, yeah. And then a lot of celebrities on it. Lawrence Fishburne was the cowboy. He's a big star. Trying to think of who else was on it. The lady who played, God, names are falling out of my head. Anyway, great show. I may make the kids watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure this weekend just to pay tribute to that. The Large Marge scene. Yes, the Large Marge scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure traumatized me for years. Me too. And I will say there are quotes, Monica and I were talking about this earlier. There are quotes from that movie that I still use as an adult. There's rarely a time where I see the Alamo or talk about a basement where I don't think, there's no basement in the Alamo, which is obviously a dumb line. And then I saw this link here. I know you are, but what am I? This link of the top 10 Pee-wee's Big Adventures quote. I don't make monkeys. I just train them. That's my name. Don't wear it out. You don't want to get mixed up with a guy like me, Dottie. I'm a loner, a rebel. That's funny. I love that one. What else? Whatever's. Why don't you take a picture? It'll last longer. Which he did in drag, by the way. And be sure to tell him Large Marge sent you. Yes, I just that was traumatizing, and that scared. Even every time I would watch it afterwards, that scene still scared me. And it's just like claymation, which is hilarious. So, anyways, rest in peace, Paul Reubens. Thank you for your contribution to our childhoods. Thank you for your contributions to pop culture. By the way, he was 98 pounds when they filmed Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That just blows my mind also. I'm a full 100 pounds, hundo. So I did gain a little bit of weight on this Iowa trip. I'm back down to like 200 as of this morning. I was 204 when we got back on Friday or Saturday morning. Anyway, Monica is saying Cooper scares me when he drives. I remember when we were young, his changing lanes caused whiplash. I did that on purpose. I was just being silly about the changing lanes when we were kids. I'm just a fast driver. I don't know what to say. I drive fast. I'm a loner, a rebel. Eric is saying, I'm going through the comments now. I tell everyone about the I've Had It podcast. There's something else. Oh, back to the burial thing. The second spouses are buried either next to their first spouses, if widowed, or somewhere else separate. Okay, that makes sense. So, I just found that whole thing fascinating to me. Mom is asking, is the second spouse buried next to the wife and the first husband? And that's the answer to that question. So, all righty. Well, with that, I'm going to say I got to get Claire to roller derby. I'll give you an update. We have big roller derby news. I don't have time to talk about it today, so I'll talk about it on Wednesday. But I love you. It's important to know you were loved. I love that you watched this. Thank you so much. I miss you when I'm away. And don't should yourself to death. No good comes from should. And I'll see you Wednesday. I will not be here tomorrow, but I'll see you Wednesday at 4:30 for another episode of Cooped Up Live. Should I say? Talk to y'all later. Bye.